Ladies and gentlemen, in a couple of seconds, you will see the video of Trump with seemingly divine intervention moving his head away from the projectile and saving his own life, essentially. We will go through that video again, frame by frame, and we will talk about the security breakdown. He was 410 feet away from the suspect, who the suspect was outside of the security perimeter. Outside of the security perimeter. The security perimeter was within 410 feet. But most importantly, I want to start with the title of this. The title is stating that God moved Trump's head away from the projectile. Well, I do believe that, but I also, if I'm going to use that and say that God helped Trump, I have to ask, and I believe in God, why did this man lose his life? A firefighter, a hero, Corey Comparator. God bless his family and his soul, and he was a hero. And again, this is the type of thing that takes place when you have 24/7 negative, apoplectic media coverage with Trump, with media and liberal pundits calling him an end of the menace to democracy, the end of the world, the reincarnation of the 1930s and 1940s German leader. I just want to say that I am fully aware and cognizant and understanding and very thoughtful pertaining to the fact that I do believe that Trump, there was some kind of divine intervention. We'll see that in a couple of seconds, protecting Trump. But then from a theological perspective, I have a question as to why did God allow others to suffer and another man to lose his life and then other people to get injured? So that's a question that I have. It's an age-old question, but God bless this man, Corey Comparator. He was a hero. I want to start really quickly before we get to the video. He was 410 feet away beyond the security perimeter. This is almost certainly, the question now is this could just completely, they're inept, or the people in charge are inept? I'm not talking about the courageous and brave Secret Service agents. I'm talking about, are there people within higher levels, maybe within the chief of the Secret Service, who could allow this? Who was at fault? Because the shooter was outside the security perimeter, and the security perimeter, and that was a CNN article, was only 410. Was the assailant, the suspect, was 410 feet away. The security perimeter was not wide enough to cover 410 feet. The assailant, the suspect, was outside the security perimeter. So we'll start off with that also. Okay? Outside the security perimeter, CNN article. Okay, this is a CNN article. Secret Service faces serious questions. The suspect was outside the security perimeter, and he was 410 feet away with a direct line of sight. And the question is, how could you have a security perimeter within 410 feet? That lends a lot of questions, but I want to just show you this frame by frame really quickly, and then we'll get to other elements of this. But when I say that God, there was divine intervention here in some way, some form, and again, I don't understand from a theological perspective, and I want to address the fact that another man's life was lost. And just let's watch this really quickly.
And that comes right from the government services, comes right out of Border Patrol. Take a look at that. So that arrow is the lowest amount of illegal immigration ever in recorded history into our country. And then the worst president in the history of our country took over. And look what happened to our country. Probably 20 million people. And that's a little bit old, that chart. That chart's a couple of months old. And if you want to really see something that said, take a look at what happened.
Move to spare. Hold. When you're ready. On you.
Ready?
Move.
Up.
Move.
Go. Up. Hawkeye's here. Ready.
We ready?
Okay, we are watching live at a rally in Butler, Pennsylvania, where former President Trump was speaking on the stage. There has been some kind of disturbance that clearly sets law enforcement and Secret Service into motion, immediately jumping around the former president in a protective mode. The crowd has been screaming. They are standing by. You can hear some voices there saying, "Are we ready to go? Are we ready to go?" We are looking at President Trump. This does not look good. I'm going to be honest with you. From what we can see right here, it looks like they are attempting to move him out, that he may have been injured. He is holding up his arm. He is pumping his fist, but clearly Secret Service wants to get him out of this situation.
All right, so let's just really quickly.
But all that charge.
Around 30 seconds into this, he moves his head. So he's going to move his head to the right, back, towards the center, and then to the right again. And when he does that, you just remember your geometry class in 10th grade or 11th grade. Had he not done that, democracy would be imperiled. The threat to democracy was what almost took place. Well, the menace to democracy was an innocent man, a hero whose life was lost, people injured fighting for their lives now, and the president, the future president of the United States of America, almost lost his life. But this is, if you look at, I just don't think enough people understand this, and I just don't think enough people understand. Let's just look at where the projectile was going and look at Trump.
That chart's a couple of months old, and if you want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened.
Okay, so this is the Fox News. This is the Fox News video. Shots fired at Trump rally at 36 seconds in. Okay. At 36 seconds in. This is how close the entire country came to a truly devastating political environment, one that Democrats and pundits and even Hollywood celebrities are making fun of this, poking. I mean, it's just unbelievable. The venom and vitriol has gone to, has descended to a new depth of disgusting, apoplectic, venomous evil. But let's just, I mean, these are the morally superior, highly educated liberal Democrats who despise rhetoric, and their rhetoric is worse than anything Trump has ever said, ever. But this is 36 seconds in. He's looking kind of towards the middle to the left, okay, or middle to the right, but his line of sight is a little bit towards the center of the stage at 36 in. 36 seconds.
That said, take a look at what happened.
And then he moves. And then he moves. And that right there, ladies and gentlemen, that right there is the most important movement that could have ever taken place. Because had he not moved, you just used geometry, the projectile would have taken out the back of his head, God forbid. But look,
Just said, take a look at what happened.
So he moves to the right, then back towards the center, then back towards the right again. Had he stayed toward the center, the projectile would have taken out the back of his head. Look, just watch this.
And if you want to really see something that said, take a look at what happened.
So that's something that I have tried to show people in one of the video right after it took place, or the day after. You can go frame by frame here. At 36 seconds, okay, at 36 seconds, he was, at 36 seconds, he was looking more towards the middle of the stage, okay?
Take a look at what happened.
Then he moves his head. Had he not moved his head at 37 seconds, using geometry, he would not have survived. No, I'm sorry. Then he moves his head back. Okay, so... No, that was just the recoil from... Okay, so... 34 seconds, he's... 34 seconds, he is looking to where he has to look to survive.
You want to really see something.
Then he, at 36 seconds, looks more towards the center, a little bit to the left, and then he moves his head to the right. We have no clue why, but that saved his life right there.
Just said, take a look at what happened.
And you just heard the shot, and then he right as you heard it, or maybe before you heard it, he had moved his head back to the right again, and that's what saves his life. That's what saves his life, because if his head is a little bit to the left, the geometry of where the angle of the projectile is going takes out the back of his head. So we'll just look at it really quickly, and then we'll move on.
I want to really see something that said, take a look at what happened. If you want to really see something that said, take a look at what happened.
So God bless this man. God bless this man.
It looks like they are attempting to move him out, that he may have been injured.
Look at this. This is everything that media, Democrats, bureaucrats despise. A man who doesn't need a script, doesn't need an orchestrated, manufactured, public relations driven. He is telling people to fight after he almost lost his life. This is everything the morally superior, highly educated liberal Democrats despise. They want, I mean, we can go on forever, but this man is a very special politician, a very special leader, a very unique human being. And like I said, God bless, I always go back to, God bless the man who lost his life, okay, Corey Comparator. This man was a hero as well. This man was the ultimate hero. He gave his life to protect his family. Gave his life to protect his family. You could do no more, there's no more courageous or heroic thing you could do in life than to give your life to protect someone else. So God bless this man. But it's like I think that the country is it's unfortunate that the country doesn't realize how close I don't think as a country we realize the severity of all this. You have like liberal or left-leaning pundits, or YouTubers even poking fun of this, and it's like I don't think they understand the severity. But let's continue here. This Democrats and media and liberal pundits, they complain about Trump's hyperbolic speech, but see, Trump does his whole thing is, these are my policies. Look what's taking place. It's terrible what's taking place. Let's fix it. The way Democrats and other pundits and media is, oh my God, it's the end of the world if we listen to Trump. It's like, no, it's not the end of the world. You can disagree in terms of policies and politics and outcome, but they try to make it into this absurd philosophical issue, and it's really not. As always, they're wrong, but let's continue here.
Back to one of the top stories that you've got a lot of questions about.
Okay, Fox News can confirm local police officers were warned about a suspicious person at Trump's Butler, Pennsylvania rally.
This is getting worse and worse. And a source says a local officer alerted state police of a suspicious man 30 minutes before the assassination attempt. They took pictures.
Unacceptable. Jonathan Siri joins us live from Butler, Pennsylvania, with what he knows about the investigation. Jonathan, 30 minutes?
Yeah, 30 minutes before this, according to a law enforcement source telling Fox News Digital that this local law enforcement officer, 30 minutes before the shooting, went to state police with a photo of this suspicious individual, and that there was some conversation between law enforcement over whether this was a rangefinder that he was carrying or just a pair of binoculars. Another law enforcement source telling Fox News that there was a lot of police traffic during the rally, indicating that officers were searching for a suspicious individual after getting tips from just everyday citizens at the rally. In fact, those citizens' initial sightings of an individual, a suspicious individual on the roof of that building outside the rally, were captured on cell phone video. Watch.
Yeah, someone's on top of the roof. Look. There he is right there. Right there, see him? He's laying down. See him?
Yeah, he's laying down.
Officer, people in our country that shouldn't be here. Dangerous people. Criminals. We have criminals. We have...
That building just outside the Secret Service perimeter was used as a staging area for one of the local counter-sniper teams, according to a federal law enforcement source that was familiar with the security plans. Two federal sources confirm reports that a local officer actually climbed up the roof and spotted the gunman, who then pointed the weapon at him, prompting the officer to drop back down off the roof. According to local media, Butler County Sheriff Michael Sloop defended the officer's retreat, telling KDKA-TV, "I would have done the same thing, absolutely. I mean, people think the officers are supermen, like you hold on to the roof with one hand while you're hanging on for dear life and pull a gun out. It doesn't work that way." The Secret Service expressed solidarity with local law enforcement, releasing a statement this morning saying, "Our agency, composed of dedicated professionals, many from state and local departments, cannot fulfill our mission without the support of courageous police officers. We are deeply grateful to the officers who ran towards danger to locate the gunman, and to all our local partners for their unwavering support. Any news suggesting the Secret Service is blaming local law enforcement for Saturday's incident is simply not true." In an interview with ABC.
But this is what happens when Democrats want to remove Trump's Secret Service. Right before this happens, days before the RNC. So everything points to a very bizarre state of affairs that of course we can't talk about. Okay? Because It would ruffle the feathers of liberal sensibilities. Of course, if the tables were turned, God forbid, they would say that Trump ordered the end of his political opponent's life. It was Trump, it was Trump, it was Trump. And there would be the Washington Post, New York Times articles blaming Trump. And the same Democrats who recoil in absolute indignation if you allude to that, oh my God, they would be blaming Trump directly if, God forbid, the roles were reversed. Let's continue.
News, the head of the Secret Service said Saturday's events unfolded in a very short period of time, but it's her responsibility, she said, to conduct a thorough investigation to make sure it doesn't happen again.
The chief of the Secret Service, anyone involved at the highest levels of this should immediately be fired. Immediately. Not just the chief of the Secret Service, but top-level officials who called to remove Trump's security details should be impeached, or there should be an impeachment process. Okay, this is far too bizarre. All of this is too. So what takes place for a tragedy is putting people in positions where they can't fulfill their duties, or where there are too many factors, unforeseen events where they can't fulfill their duties, or too many disadvantages, let's say. Too many bizarre occurrences that perhaps are not so much allowed to happen, but because of seemingly ineptitude, what seems to be people inept at the highest levels can oftentimes lead to this type of tragedy.
Again.
The Secret Service is responsible for the protection of the former president.
So the buck stops with you?
The buck stops with me. I am the director of the Secret Service. It was unacceptable, and it's something that shouldn't happen again. We're going to continue to.
How do you have a security perimeter that's within 410 feet? 410 feet is nothing.
Be transparent and communicate with people.
You plan to stay on? Absolutely.
I do plan to stay on.
FBI officials say investigators have now unlocked the phone of the deceased shooter, 20-year-old Thomas Matthew Crooks. Agents have interviewed more than 100 people, including Crooks' neighbors and members of the gun club where he did target practice. But the FBI is still trying to determine the motive in Saturday's shooting. Back to you guys.
So
the motive was to end Trump's life. This isn't rocket science.
So, Jonathan, at Quantico, the FBI phone experts were able to unlock the phone somehow. They haven't found any motive yet. I'm sure they've gone through all his stuff. Have they figured out whether or not he left a paper statement about, sometimes we see manifestos, stuff like that. Anything to explain why he climbed up on that roof and started shooting?
Yeah, they did not find, at least not that they have revealed publicly, they said they did not find a manifesto, and that's really why they were urgently trying to unlock that phone, hoping that perhaps there was a digital trail of what was not left as a hard copy in print.
All right. Thanks, Jonathan.
Thank you, sir.
So 26, they took their second picture of this guy 26 minutes before the shooting. They're all on walkie-talkies. They're all on the same headset. So why wouldn't you just say, we got a suspicious guy on top of the roof, and 26 minutes before the shooting, what does he, if a guy has a gun on top of the roof, he should be target practice for a Secret Service sniper.
I do not understand why the president was not already in the car after they had identified the shooter 30 minutes prior to that makes no sense.
It started later. It was supposed to start at 5.
That's exactly right.
The police officer that went up on the roof and the gunman allegedly
face to face.
Yeah.
Well,
why aren't you allowed to shoot them at that point when you're a police officer?
But he can't. He says he was on the ladder,
holding on with one hand.
And then the second problem.
Then why didn't he get down and say? Why didn't he get down and say someone's on the roof?
So that's the problem. The local police comms and Secret Service are on different channels. Most of the time they have like one or two people that are liaisons between the local police and the Secret Service. But you guys got to fix that. And for the director to say after this major failure that she's still going to stay on as
Lawrence,
the director.
how many minutes went by after the police officer saw him on the roof?
Exactly.
And he got down from the roof. He had time to go get someone else.
Well, they say that the way I understand it, from the minute when they made eye contact at the confrontation, the shots rang out right after. He knew he had to shoot, which is interesting because he picked up the pace afterwards.
That's right.
Well, but imagine if they found him when there was some of the preliminary speakers were up there. They could have stopped this. They also thought he was suspicious on the ground.
Yeah.
They thought he was
Well, they had a sniper team in the same building.
410 feet away, beyond the security perimeter, it's almost, that's you're either inept or it's by design. So whoever was responsible needs to be fired immediately. Okay, and the question is, who decides the security perimeter? Is it the chief that you just heard from? And also, if you have local law enforcement and Secret Service need to be, they need to have the same frequency and need to be able to communicate immediately at all times. And local law enforcement needs to be given the opportunity or the ability to unilaterally act as well. And I think they have that ability. So this is so bizarre. It's so bizarre how there wasn't just it wasn't just a breakdown. It wasn't just a breakdown of security. It's something far more sinister than that. Not necessarily, I'm not alluding to anyone in particular on the ground that day. There was no effort by anyone on the ground that day, local or Secret Service, to harm anyone. The only goal of everyone on the ground that day was to protect the president. But there are people who decide the aggregate bird's eye viewpoint of decisions. There are people who make decisions where everyone on the ground has to deal with these decisions. And the question is, who was responsible for deciding the security perimeter? And if the security perimeter was decided because there was a lack of Secret Service agents and a lack of funding, then who's responsible for putting Trump's life and the lives of his attendees at risk? Because if you are cutting corners, you have this small security perimeter where, I mean, it's not even 410 feet is nothing. What's the reason? Is it because of lack of resources, a lack of people on the ground? Well, then who's at fault for that? Oh, that's right, Democrats that wanted to take his Secret Service away, maybe.
That was their headquarters. That's where they were. That's where they were actually staging things. And so there are a lot of stories out there. We knew about him for 30 minutes. We came in contact with him 3 times. At one point, and this is a tell. The guy was one of the, we don't know if it's Secret Service or local law enforcement, but he had the gun scope.
Yeah.
And he's eyeballing where the speakers are.
Told him
at that point, it's like, at that point, you just take them aside.
You know what they say?
And you say, let's take a look what's in your bag.
We think they might be binoculars. So they backed off.
What did the dad say?
Binoculars.
You said his dad was speaking.
Well, his dad has spoke to some local outlets, and he keeps saying he doesn't know what took place at that moment. I mean, I'm just saying, as someone that is supportive of law enforcement, trained a lot of cops with their dogs, I haven't seen anything more egregious since Uvalde. That you just sit and wait as the former commander-in-chief gets shot. I'm sure the people that are on his personal detail meant well, but the advance, the planning, all of this was wrong.
Imagine if that is your dad or your husband, the man who was killed, Joey.
That's right.
And what did law enforcement say? They said, well, we saw him and we took a picture of him. What's the picture going to do?
Because that helped us.
But Ainsley, that wasn't the only big news.
I watch like true crime all the time as I'm uploading videos or, you know, fixing live streams or whatever. And I watch all these true crime, and it's like, and now you see the madman on the closed circuit TV. It's like, what is the point of being videoed at all times in society when evil still takes place? It's like, I mean, yes, it points to the suspect, that it convicts people. I get that, but it doesn't protect anyone. It doesn't protect anyone. So what's the point of taking a picture? This was a security breakdown of epic biblical proportions. But the way Democrats and bureaucrats and sinister people work is they you can look at that fateful day in Virginia years back. Why were counter protesters not separated? Usually they are. Nobody asks that question because the question leads to an obvious conclusion. Okay, what happened to barricades that day in January? An obvious conclusion. Why were doors open? An obvious conclusion. And so there's so many things that are so bizarre, and the way Democrats and media and bureaucrats work is the reality is filtered through MSNBC, CNN, the Washington Post, New York Times, and then Tucker Carlson comes out with footage and people are acquitted. The same Democrats who care so much about prison reform don't care that people were actually acquitted because video footage, well, in this case, like I said, it doesn't prevent, but it does help convict and acquit. But let's continue.
Yesterday.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmer.
Former President Donald Trump says he has rewritten his RNC speech following Saturday's assassination attempt, and it will now focus on unity instead of the Biden administration's policies when he accepts the party's nomination.
That's right. The former president saying the speech I was going to give on Thursday was going to be a humdinger.
There you go.
Had this not happened, this would have been one of the most incredible speeches. Honestly, it's going to be a whole different speech now. Former GOP presidential candidate Larry Elder joins us now live from Milwaukee. Larry, good morning to you. So the whole tone of the RNC has really changed, and it changed in the blink of an eye. So the president says that his speech is going to focus on unity, and in the spirit of that, former presidential candidate Nikki Haley has also been invited, and not only is she going to attend, she's going to make a speech herself. So what do you think about all of this?
Well, I think it's good news for the nation. It's probably pretty bad news for the Biden campaign because it means we're going to start focusing on the things we ought to be focusing on. Namely, are you better off now than you were 3.5 years ago? And unless you're an illegal alien, the answer is no. We've got 40-year high inflation's come down a little bit. Gas prices are about 50% higher than they were. 8 million people in the country here illegally. If just 1/2% of them are here for evil purposes, you're talking about 40,000 people. And because of the way he pulled out of Afghanistan, you have all sorts of adversaries engaging in aggressive behavior, whether it's Iran, North Korea, Russia, Hamas. So the world is worse off because of Joe Biden. And if the answer is, are you better off now? Is the world better off now? Then I think the Biden campaign is in serious, serious trouble.
Larry Elder giving the speech that Donald Trump was supposed to give earlier until the obvious events of the Saturday assassination.
I'm sure it'll cover all of it.
The rest of the convention will cover it. I want to get your thoughts on this, and there was a lot to get to. Democrat Congressman Benny Thompson is facing backlash over recent attempts to deny former President Trump's Secret Service protection. Here's what it says, the bill that he wanted to pass a month prior to Donald Trump getting convicted in New York. Quote, the Disgraced Former Protectees Act would terminate service protection for individuals who otherwise qualify for it upon sentencing following conviction for a federal or state felony. This measure would apply to former President Trump.
So Democrats literally wanted his life to be at greater risk. Literally wanted his life to be at greater risk by removing Secret Service protections. In a because of a conviction that will certainly be overturned on unconstitutional grounds. A state cannot level a federal crime at anyone without the federal government involved.
Okay, so that's what his office did. This is what someone in his office did following the shooting. A former staffer, now former for Thompson, posting on Facebook after the assassination attempt saying, don't miss next time. Let's go to the don't miss and then go to the broader picture of what the heck the congressman was trying to do there with his bill. He fired this person, but then didn't really make a statement condemning this person.
That person's message, although disgusting, wasn't as bad as the congressman actually trying to increase the risk of Trump losing his life by removing Secret Service protection from a conviction that was so absurd, everyone knows it's going to be overturned, just like all of the cases have been dismantled before our very eyes.
Person in his office. Right. Should a sitting senator, somebody who works for our government, not condemn something from somebody in his office like this? It seems like a missed moment by the congressman.
Well, let's consider the source. This is the same guy who referred to Associate Justice Clarence Thomas as an Uncle Tom. Same guy who in 2004, after George W. Bush won re-election, tried to decertify the results in Ohio, claiming that the Debo voting machines had been tampered with, making the same argument, by the way, that Donald Trump made after the 2020 election. Nobody called him an election denier. And then, of course, you're talking about this staffer who, minutes after this assassination attempt, posts on Facebook, he should take some shooting lessons next time, don't miss. And the fact that this person got fired shows you that not only has the 9-year vilification of Trump, calling him a Hitler and a Nazi and a dictator, been pathological, it's also been diabolical, which means they don't even believe it. If there was a failed attempt against Adolf Hitler, would we be sad about that, or would we be hoping that perhaps it would go forward and be successful? The fact that people are now offering sympathy to Donald Trump and sympathy to his family shows you they don't even mean it, which means it's that diabolical. They're appealing to the most base instinct of their base. Right. It's disgusting.
Well, Larry, the former president, he was supposed to take a couple days off to recover following this assassination attempt, of course. But yesterday he said he was on a plane. He's going to be in Milwaukee. He's there right now. When you see him, what will you say to him?
I'll say that, in my opinion, probably the most famous NFL catch in history is called the Immaculate Reception. I call this the Immaculate Protection. I believe that there was divine intervention to make sure nothing happened to this man. It's extraordinary. We're talking about maybe a fraction of an inch. We'd be having a very different conversation than right now. So I would cheer him on 4 more years.
And again, it's important to remember that Corey Comparator, the firefighter who risked his life, gave his life to protect his family, he lost his life. So his life was taken. And that's the type of, when I say God moved Trump's head or divine intervention, it's like, you have to ask yourself, well, okay, this man should be alive too. This man should be alive too. But let's go ahead and look at the actual map again.
We continue to cover the attempted assassination of former President Trump today. You're looking at pictures of the event. We just heard from an FBI official, along with local officials in Butler County, Pennsylvania. They believe a 20-year-old man from the county was the shooter. They have not released his name. Clearly, they know who he is, but are trying to figure out the motives behind this and if anyone else was involved. But back to the shooting itself, heard around the world. The former president said he was hit in the ear. You see the blood streaming from the side of his face. Several other people were shot as well. One of them died. 2 others are in critical condition tonight. So how could this happen? How could the shooter get this close? Let's look at a map of the area again. The Secret Service released a little bit more information on this.
So only in American politics today could the Secret Service chief not resign or not be forced to resign. The Republican Party at this moment, the party is a weak political party, okay? After November, it'll be much stronger because Democrats will almost certainly lose seats in the House and Senate. And they'll lose seats to Trump Republicans. The never-Trumpers will finally be kicked. And then they say, well, the assailant was a registered Republican. The Republicans despised Trump for like 4 years. No, 8 years. You still have Kinzinger, Cheney. You think these, so what? They're registered Republicans also. You think they're allies of Trump? No. Never-Trumpers despise Trump. So saying that somebody's a registered Republican is nonsense. However, if you donate money to Biden, so there are people who've donated money to Biden, tried to take Trump's life, and also part of his conviction process. We'll leave it at that. It's interesting how everyone involved in trying to torment Trump or hurt him in some way donated money to Biden. But anyway, being a registered Republican is completely meaningless. You'd have to be completely ignorant of U.S. politics to think that means anything. Okay, a registered Republican, like Republicans most Republicans are not that focused on party politics. Democrats are, it's like part of on the Wikipedia page of celebrities, it'll be political affiliation, Democrat. Why would anyone need to put their political affiliation on a Wikipedia page? Okay, unless you're like completely indoctrinated and you think it's some kind of badge of courage. But this is absurd. A direct line of sight, just a stone's throw away, practically, or as obviously not just a very simple, easy stone's throw away in terms of ballistics, and it's not far. It's not, unfortunately, far for somebody to take the life of another person, okay? Or even target practice, or it's just not far. It's not you need to have a security perimeter that includes not just 410 feet, 1,000 feet, 2,000 feet. Are you kidding me? This is absurd. Everyone involved in deciding the security perimeter made a huge, huge, huge mistake.
See how close that building appears to be to the stage, just off to the side there. They say the gunman was off the property on top of that roof, maybe 200 or 300 feet away from the stage, and then fired up to 10 times with an AR-15 style rifle. The shooter was also killed by the Secret Service, but again, the identity and the motives have not been released.
Now let's bring in former Assistant FBI Director Chris Swecker. We have this individual identified, the presumptive shooter, at 4:54 on a Sunday morning, about 10 hours after this attempted assassination took place. What is the FBI doing right now to figure out why this guy acted like this?
Yeah, they're dissecting every aspect of this person's life. I'm a little surprised it took them that long to identify him, but they're looking at whether he has ideology or was driven by ideology, which would make this not just an assassination attempt, but domestic terrorism. Is there anyone else in his network, if you will, his social network, that might have shared that ideology? Are there others? And Carly mentioned earlier about reconciling this discrepancy between, hey, there's no threat, but yet we haven't identified this person. You can't reconcile those two things. And I also want to comment about what Jonathan Gilliam said earlier. He was spot on. This was a security breakdown from start to finish, and this was the primary goal, the primary mission of the Secret Service is to prevent this type of action and then react as swiftly as they can to get them out of the danger zone. Neither happened here. So I don't want to issue harsh judgments, but it was definitely a security breakdown.
Yeah, one of the things that Jonathan was talking about is the image that we'll all remember of the president. You could see his face, you could see his fist. He was saying, "Fight, fight,
right.
fight." But there are questions on if that should have happened, if he should have been allowed to be that visible following this assassination attempt on him.
That's like the last question, though, that is even relevant. Yeah, he probably should have been rushed off stage, but you know what? It's Trump. God bless him. He is not going to back down, which is exactly why Democrats and many Hollywood celebrities are, celebrating this moment in the most violent, sinister way. The man doesn't back down. The man is a one-man wrecking crew of failed miserably failed liberal ideology. That's why they can't stand him. He doesn't kowtow to media. He doesn't worship intel agencies. He doesn't want never-ending wars and military conflict. Everything Democrats absolutely, I shouldn't say all Democrats, but everything Democrats are either okay with or actually like. People have asked me, why are you voting for Trump? I said, because he's against endless wars. Oh, who cares? They don't care. The liberals that you used to grow up with, that you thought were liberal, this is not today's liberals. They don't care about endless wars. Okay, that's why, like, it's one of the most important reasons to vote for Trump, and they just simply don't care.
Absolutely not. If you look at what happened with Reagan when he was shot, they had him in the car within seconds. In this case, as Jonathan said, it was a lifetime before they got him off that stage. And look, it was a great moment when he pumped his fist. That'll go down in history as one of the most dramatic moments in this country's history, I think. But it should not have been allowed to happen. They should have whisked him out of there in seconds, no matter what he wanted to do, whether he wanted to shoes or pump his fist, no matter what. He should have been off that stage, in that car, and out of there in seconds. And it was a lifetime. If there had been a second shooter, they would have taken him out. I mean, it was almost a kill shot. I hate to put it this way.
Well, my thing is, if it had already taken place and the Secret Service didn't find the second or third or fourth assailant, I mean, it's like, how could that happen? So I understand he shouldn't have done this, but that wasn't the big deal. The big deal was, how do you allow, how does local and government and federal, how do local and federal security forces allow a man to be on a roof while people are saying, hey, there's somebody on a roof looking directly at the president? Okay, there's two, with Democrats and scandals and people losing their lives and terrible events in modern U.S. history. There's two questions to ask: who does it benefit politically? Why were important security measures immediately disregarded? And how does the media try to spin it initially? And why do media ignore, like, for example, the security measures that were ignored or that weren't addressed? Why is media so quick to ignore very bizarre security measures that were in a bizarre manner ignored?
But it was almost a kill shot as it was. But if there had been a second shooter, there would have been plenty of opportunity to take him out again. So this breaks every rule of the Secret Service's protocol and just general executive protection in general.
What can the FBI do now to prevent a copycat? Or is there nothing they can do because this is a lone wolf acting alone, just decided, I'm going to...
His security detail should be doubled, tripled, quadrupled, and Republicans should demand this. But the Republican Party at this very moment is very weak, very weak. It'll be much stronger after November, when he'll win a landslide, Trump, and we'll get Congress also, almost certainly.
Hop on top of a building and fire at the president.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the Secret Service has...
By the way, Rob, thank you to my super chat. Thank you. Yes, I remember Rob. Exactly. And I mean, they're not even hiding their contempt, but also they're not even shy about trying to display or, boast about their power and how sinister they can be.
Has a primary responsibility to protect. The FBI's responsibility is to generate intelligence and help Secret Service prevent this sort of thing and get out in front of it. But now, and I said this yesterday, very early in the process, the FBI would step in. It's their jurisdiction to investigate this type of incident, and there'll be lessons learned immediately, which I think will be put in play at the DNC, at the RNC. But in this case, the FBI is not just investigating the incident, they're investigating the protection and the security strategy around it. That's why you didn't see a Secret Service at the press conference last night. They have a conflict of interest. They can't be part of the investigation, even though the FBI is playing nice about that part of it. But the FBI has exclusive jurisdiction in this case, in the case of an attempted assassination, and they will tear this thing apart. They will bring every resource they have to bear. They will go through this, as we mentioned earlier. I mean, they're obviously dissecting this person's life, his home, his media, his social media, his electronic devices, his friends, etc. But there'll be lessons learned here, and they'll come out pretty quick.
We were just talking about this with Congressman Jimenez, and it feels like this tweet from Congressman Michael Waltz will be where this goes in terms of questions asked in the days and weeks ahead. He says, I have a very reliable source telling me that there have been repeated requests for stronger Secret Service protection for President Trump denied by Secretary Mayorkas. Can we get your reaction to that in the minute we have remaining?
You have a man who is already impeached, Mayorkas, who's denying Secret Service protection. Democrats they're basically telling the world, we want this man to be at risk. And that's not even what they're telling the world. I'm not going to tell you what they're telling the world, but obviously it's a little bit more than that. And again, it's a quest for political power. They don't care about anything else but that. That's why they disown friends and family. Do you think that it's normal for a human being to no longer speak to a friend or a family member because of politics? Well, that is a recent phenomenon the past 7 years, 6, 7, 8 years. Okay. It's about political power, political influence. That's it. It's not about the good of the country. It's not about a value system. And then they say, well, Trump's rhetoric caused this. No. Trump is not a media machine that 24/7, tells you how terrible Democrats are and how they're, a threat to. Trump doesn't use the word threat to democracy. He doesn't use the word 1930s and 1940s Germans. It's Democrats that do that.
Yeah. Yes. They need to look at that. If resources were denied, and these Trump rallies are a security nightmare. They need the resources. They need more resources, obviously, than they had yesterday. So.
CMW, thank you. Thank you so much to my super chat. Thank you. Greatly appreciated, CMW. Thank you.
Yeah, and you also need to look at the political rhetoric because, anyone who has called this former president an existential threat has blood on their hands, and that's President Biden. That would include former President Obama. Anyone else who demonizes someone in the manner that he's been demonized has basically put a bullseye on his back for every little 20-year-old, every little wingnut out there who it's driven and sort of whipped into a frenzy by that sort of rhetoric.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'll be back later today. Hit subscribe. CMW, Rob, thank you so very, very much. It's very important. I just don't think that people understand, and I'm going to try to continue to show people, had he not moved his head, the back of his head would have been taken off. And we were very close. I'll probably change the title just because I don't usually use the word God in a title, but this was a moment to reflect. This was right before the RNC. Very bizarre. Very bizarre. Hit subscribe. I'll be back tonight, people. Be here tonight. I'll do 2 live streams a day from here on out. And then we'll get to 2 live streams and an upload. But and then we'll try to build the other channels.